Hey, this is Jan at Learn English with Be Global, and today we're going to be looking at how to improve your English writing skills. Specifically, we're going to be talking about an academic paper, not an email that you're writing to your friends or family. We're going to talk about some good writing habits that you can form, and then we'll give you some tips for writing an actual paper. Alright? So we'll start off with the first habit, and that is journaling. Journaling comes easy to some people, but for other people it's kind of a hard discipline. But if you do this every day, I think that you will start to see some of the benefits of the multitasking aspect of journaling. So for those of us who feel like journaling is kind of a waste of time, it helps to keep in mind that writing in English will help you improve your writing as you're just trying to express your thoughts regarding what's important to you. And like I said, if you love multitasking like me, here are some things you can do to improve your English writing skills when you journal each day, even if it's just for 15 minutes. When you journal, check your spelling. Develop into an expert speller while you're journaling. Then you don't have to look up words so often, and you can save time. The other thing is to bulk up on your vocabulary. Now, I've drawn a little vocab man here. He's really bulky, and if you think about him, you want to have really strong vocabulary, and you want to be able to flex your vocabulary muscles. So how do you do that? Well, if you haven't already made good friends with a thesaurus, the time is now. The thesaurus is wonderful for helping you bulk up on your vocabulary. You want to be able to find words to express what you think is important more than the words you would normally be using. So this journaling practice is a good time to kind of look some of those words up. There's another resource that's called a collocation, and we will talk about that in a moment. I will describe that, but that is also a resource for bulking up your vocabulary. Okay, so let's talk about collocations. That's just a big word, and all it means is it's a group of words that usually go together in spoken English or written English. Some examples of a collocation are building blocks, bright idea, talk freely, or heavy rain. I suggest you add these phrases to your bulking up of your vocabulary because you will be able to communicate better if you understand that English speakers use collocations all the time and with very specific ways. So, one of the examples I used was building blocks. Okay, so when I say a collocation is a building block of how we speak English, how we speak in English, you can know that those two words normally go together or often go together. You won't hear building squares or building sticks. You'll hear building blocks. A building block, the definition is it means that parts come together and make it possible for something bigger to exist. So these collocations come together and they make up a lot of the English language, a lot. So you can probably find a word and connect it to another word almost every time. So let's look at this other example down here of heavy rain. Heavy rain is something we say in English. You could describe a lot of rain by saying big rain or strong rain, and you would be okay in saying that. But they don't really fit into the English speaker's mind. It doesn't make sense to me if you say big rain. There's no category for that. We just say heavy rain. If it rained a lot, we say, what is heavy rain? For example, I might say to my husband, it looks like we had heavy rain last night because the yard is still very wet. Right? So that's how we would use that. So that's a collocation. So I would invest in a hard copy of a collocations dictionary if you can. Or you may want to go to a library and just take a look at it and see what it looks like and see if it can help you and if you can use that when you're writing your papers. There may also be some online resources for collocations that you can find as well. But I think this is a nice tip for improving your English writing skills and also your spoken English. So again, why use collocations to bulk up your English vocabulary? Well, it expedites learning English as opposed to just learning vocabulary in single words. So that's when you're writing in your journal. Remember, you want to use a thesaurus or use a collocation dictionary. You want to check your spelling, become an expert at checking your spelling. And then also, when you write in your journal, practice writing in the present tense. And that helps you to have active verbs. And when you do that, when you describe whatever happened in your day, when you write in the journal, try to find some attention-grabbing verbs. The fourth thing you can do, you can multitask while you're doing your journal writing, is to make your sentences short. Short sentences show that you know what you're saying. I've edited a lot of papers, I've written a lot of papers that have been edited, and one way you can make your teacher, your editor happy is write short sentences. Don't try to write a big long sentence unless you're absolutely sure you know where you're going with that. And even native English writers and speakers, we try to be as concise as possible. So short sentences make what you're trying to express very clear. In addition to journaling, another habit you might get into, if you aren't already, is reading on a regular basis. You can read newspaper articles for examples of brevity, of short sentences. I also recommend reading some good books with great descriptions. That's another way to bulk up your vocabulary, to learn how they're saying things. What adjectives are they using? Right now, I am rereading Anne of Green Gables. And the description and the overall vocabulary is just delightful. And it sharpens my mind. It helps me be a better communicator and a better writer. So I recommend reading various types of writers as you're trying to increase your English writing skills. Okay, so what if you get an assignment to write an academic paper? How do you write a good paper? One of the most common academic papers is the research paper. So we're going to use that as our example today. What do you do first? Well, the first thing you need to do is find a topic, right? Find a topic. You often get a choice in your paper's topic, so finding the topic that interests you will make the writing process so much more fun and enjoyable. So if you don't know where to start with this topic search, you can always just go online and just search, find a topic. Well, there are quite a bit of interesting issues out there upon which to write. So once you've found your topic, we don't want to make it too broad, right? That's our second point. We've all tried to write papers with a topic that is too extensive, and then later discovered, after a lot of unnecessary research, that we should have narrowed our focus. So we're going to look at some samples of how to narrow your focus. Say, for example, you want to write, you like to write about writers in Ireland. So maybe your topic is writers in Ireland. That's way too big, right? So you could instead do something like Oscar Wilde's last days. So it's a lot smaller thing for you to research and write. Another thing you may want to write about are big cats in Indonesia. Too big, too big. How about instead the daily life of the Sumatran tiger? That's small enough for you to write a paper, and me too, right? Or you're interested in archaeology in the Middle East. Okay, that's a little bit more focused, but it's still way too big, right? I mean, it's archaeology. Instead, how about, why is the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls so important in 2015? Okay, so that's, I think you get the picture with that. We want to just have a topic that is manageable. Alright, so we've chosen our topic and we've narrowed it. And the third thing you need to do when you're writing a research paper is to create your purpose statement, or some people call it a thesis statement, but we'll just say it's a purpose statement that seems to communicate more clearly. A purpose statement is just the main idea of what you want to say. It keeps everything else in your paper back directed to the main point, your big idea. Knowing your big idea at the start, writing it down, will save you time when you edit at the end. Think of your purpose statement as the trunk of a tree. Everything else that you write about in your paper should naturally connect to the trunk of the tree. Maybe that helps. So with the Oscar Wilde example I gave before, your purpose statement might be, this paper will explore why Oscar Wilde was surprisingly remorseful of his life choices at the end of his life. Now, I know I said before we want to keep our sentences short, and we need to do that. The purpose statement is saying a lot, so it's really something you need to work on at the beginning. It may not be as short as other ones, but your purpose statement needs to have something interesting in it. It even needs to be, some might say it needs to be debatable. You're not going to say, the sky is blue. And no one's going to read that. But if you write something like, Oscar Wilde was remorseful at the end of his life, this party guy, I want to read this paper because I want to know if it's true or not. So that's kind of the idea. And once you've done that, you've got it right here, like on your trunk. and you're committed to that idea. So you need to decide what idea you want to commit to. Then everything else in your paper needs to surround and support that idea. So, pick a topic, and narrow the topic, then write a purpose statement. What are you trying to say in your paper? Then you have these supporting limbs and leaves that are around there, and those are your evidences. And you can cut some of them out, or you can add some more, but you still have your purpose statement. So I hope that gives you an idea of why the purpose statement is important. And I hope it's fun for you. Don't look at it as something negative, because then you won't like to do it. So if you don't have a purpose statement and you only have these ideas, there's no trunk, then they're just a bunch of thoughts, evidences lying on the ground. There's no cohesion there, and you really want cohesion in your papers. Your teachers want you to have cohesion as well. Our fourth tip is to make an outline before you start. You need to know, it's helpful to know which branches you want to stick on the tree, what evidences support what you're saying, what examples you want to use to support your purpose statement. So having an outline before you start will help you so much. So making an outline is really just creating a template for yourself that you can just fill in. So it feels like a little less work in that way. Of course, you're going to need to have a conclusion, and you're going to have to work on a solid conclusion as well. But the final tip I have for you is to always edit your paper before you submit it. And maybe you think that's obvious, but I know a lot of people who write their papers late into the night, they turn it in, nobody looks at it, and they could have had a really great paper if they just had started earlier and had someone look at it. So we have a saying in the U.S., and it goes like this: get a second pair of eyes. So what does that mean? Well, it means always have some other person's eyes look at your paper before you submit it. Or your blog, maybe. Of course, it helps if this second pair of eyes, this other person, is a good English writer or speaker. But I've also heard that there are some free online web pages that are willing to do some free corrections for you. So that's something to investigate as well, and I would take advantage of that. Sometimes it's easier to have someone you don't know edit your paper, right? I know having someone proofread or edit your final paper can be time-consuming and maybe feel painful, but remember, they're not editing you, they're editing your paper. So with editing, you're going to have to plan ahead, as I mentioned before. As soon as you get your assignment, I would start writing down ideas and notes. If you wait until the last minute to write your paper, then no one is going to edit your paper in the short amount of time. It's good to plan ahead with that. So I'm going to give you another eye idiom for free. It's called fresh eyes. And what we will say is, we look at a paper with fresh eyes. Well, what does that mean? Well, once you write your paper, the best advice I ever got was write your draft, put it aside, go do something, take a nap. The best thing is just to sleep. Just let it cool overnight is what we would say. And then in the morning when you go back to it, you look at it with fresh eyes. Eyes that are not tired, eyes that can see simple mistakes that would maybe make a difference in the grade. So having fresh eyes when you look at your paper will maybe make a difference between an A and a B or something like that. So get a second pair of eyes, have someone else look at your paper, and also edit your paper with a fresh pair of eyes yourself. So those are some of my top tips for how you can improve your English writing skills. And I know you will do great. Thank you for watching. And if you like this video, hit subscribe and leave a comment below.